thank you so much for having me on this podcast. And I think your presence here as well shows that what this program is about. These programs that build the momentum, create the narrative, and define the outcomes that we are looking for. For startup, I think it's a very positive, motivational word because it's your starting. And start is always exciting and it's always liberating. All these deep tech domains that government has started promoting, and especially three sectors that we look at Meity. One is the quantum, second is semiconductor, and third is the AI. Because parallelly we look to build the investor ecosystem in India, attract local capital. If we can have local capital, one is it has to be patient. People need to understand it's not stock market.
Okay.
You can't just buy and sell just because
The moment you feel it's not working, it's not
exactly.
Welcome to Startup Markham 2024. I want to first start with understanding how you guys have set up 40 pods or more here. But how has the experience been throughout in the whole environment that has been created here, welcoming all the investors, startup doers, incubators, the future, and the unicorns?
No, Anku, so thank you so much for having me on this podcast. And I think your presence here as well shows that what this program is about.
Yes.
We are trying to engage the industry, trying to engage the community, trying to engage all segments of the society that they should know that these kind of programs are happening because it's these programs that build the momentum, create the narrative, and define the outcomes that we are looking for. And especially coming in the beginning of the year, the Startup Mahakumbh, it sets the stage for the rest of the year by bringing all the startups together. And I think today the need is greater than ever before,
Yes.
given the current state of the startup ecosystem and definitely India's rise in that ecosystem.
I would like to understand from you about the word startup itself. How do you look at the term? Because everybody has been defining their own understanding to it. Some call it entrepreneurship, some call it just the starting of some journey. How are you looking at the word startup in your head?
See, when we talk about it, startup, one as a definitional point of view, and second, there is an epistemological root of it, right? What does the word in itself mean? And the connotation it carries. But from definition, we look at DPIIT and Startup India's definition of what startup is, and I won't bore you with that. But for startup, I think it's a very positive, motivational word because it's your starting. And start is always exciting and it's always liberating. And I think that's why. Otherwise, India was still doing business before.
Exactly. We were still doing business. We
But
still had doing business.
exactly. But to energize and excite the youngsters, and when our honorable Prime Minister launched a mission, Startup India, back in 2015-16, he had a clear narrative that this is the youth, and youth has to be energized, and the terminology will energize too.
Has
And the
this not
mission has
empowered
become-
the youth, you think, in a way that they feel like now we can do our own business, which I don't know why earlier people kind of deterred from doing it. So what could have changed in today's, is this just the boost that has been given by the ministry, the government, or is really the courage in individual youngster has come in to go and think of starting their own
This
business?
is, I will not agree with you that it has energized the youth. It has not only energized the youth, it has energized even the elderly population.
To have their startup?
Yeah, yesterday I was sitting in a session for NASSCOM Deep Tech session and asked a question, who all are here startup founders? And the first to raise hand was a person in at least 55, 60 years of
Oh
age.
my God.
And they were talking about it, and the rest of the people were given their startup. But that's the exciting part, that you started with the goal of energizing youngsters, but now you have changed the mindset of the previous generation.
Yes.
And they're saying, I'm a VP in a previous company, I've retired. Why just be consultant? Why not create a company?
And I'm a startup doer. You
Yeah.
said I'm a startup
I'm a startup
founder.
now, yeah. Instead of just retiring and sitting at home, I'm going to take my expertise.
So this is let people do away with the. Is this because people have more alternatives now, or they have more ideas? What has really worked right? Because we use the word like deep tech, edu tech. Everything has been attached to the word tech to bring up a startup. So what has really started working in every generation that they believe that they can now roll their business out? Is the capital in the market? Is the technology?
See, I
It's
think
just the
it's India is a historically risk-averse country
Yes.
when we look at our risk profile compared to the Western world. But India never lacked talent.
Okay.
From the ancient India till the modern India, if we look at even in the last 20 decades, or even look at the leaders of Google, Microsoft, look at who is the Vice President of the United States, look at the deans and directors of leading
Yes.
universities in US. So Indians are capable of creating wherever they are.
Okay.
And before The Western world, the US, UK, Australia, etc., provided that opportunity, and Canada. So we relocated there. I spent good 19 years in US, right?
Yes.
So coming back. But now the government has created that enabling environment. Now our kids and us and others don't have to go to US to find opportunity. India is the new land of opportunity.
There has been an acceptance that we feel from our own country, which we did not, about the whole idea of
See,
starting
the
your own business.
acceptance definitely, but more than that, it's the resource allocation that the
Okay.
government has done for startups. Now, under the leadership of our honorable prime minister, that the youth will create the future. Every minister has focused on creating enabling environment for their startups.
Okay.
So, be it in agri-tech, health tech, fintech, every sector, every ministry, they are creating innovation house. They are funding accelerators, incubators.
Training centers.
Yeah, and even at Ministry of Electronics and IT, we are funding more than 42 Center of Excellence in
Okay.
deep tech and emerging tech. We have more than 100 plus incubators and accelerators that we are funding across India. So this provides that environment to the startups and entrepreneurs in small towns as well, that they can go to an incubator and meet like-minded people.
So was this a limitation up until now? The funding, as you say, which you're providing now to the incubators and other sectors, was that the only limitation with which we struggled for so long to come up and place our idea in public and experiment with it and bring out the result?
See, I think India is still a resource constrained country. Now we are doing allocation a little differently. Welfare economics is still there. We have to worry about the welfare of the large part of Indian population that need sustenance support from government. But development economics is different.
Okay.
And what our honorable prime minister had the vision that digital India and startup India,
Yes.
both will lead the future. And today, India is a leader in the digital revolution.
Yes.
We did not lead the scientific revolution or industrial revolution or tech revolution, but India is leading the digital revolution. Our Aadhaar card and identity for 1 billion people.
The financial inclusion.
Exactly.
That we've done.
UPI, the fastest, largest fintech transactions. Look at National Digital Health Mission, providing medical services in remote areas to the most needy people. ONDC, democratizing e-commerce. So we have built such a data-driven economy on a platform, and India is leading the way. And I think this bodes really well that the government had the right vision, that enabled the creation of the ecosystem, provided funding support, attracted private sector into participation, and as a result of that, we are seeing it where India is today.
I think that has been a great step to first attract the private sector, because they could also help to level up the game of making the businesses viable for people who are starting up. But from Meity's point of view, how do we understand that which are the areas that you have been identifying? What is the basis of identification of certain sectors when you go to encourage them into the startup world?
See, more specifically for startups, we have two verticals that we look at. One is deep tech, second is digitization. So deep tech is a need for the future. We have to capture the future opportunity share. India doesn't file and get enough patents granted. China gets 38% of the global patents.
Yes.
US second. So three countries, China, US and South Korea account for 70% of the patents.
And these patents are in which area majorly? In the
They are in
pharma
every
space?
tech, every tech space, yeah. Anything, med device to healthcare IT to pharma to hardware, software, etc. So India needs to do more on that vertical in the deep tech. So we are looking at funding those schemes. Second is the digitization of India. Because where internet penetration is there, then the economic activity happens.
Yes, the outreach is higher.
So we need to engage more people and reduce the digital divide. And hence a lot of our schemes. So the new scheme that we are launching, Genesis, it funds startups only in tier 2 and tier 3.
Wow. So is it easy now to reach out to the tier 2 and tier 3 population via digital media? Is that the path that you have?
See, so what we look at is typically the colleges and academic institutions, because they have a lot of infra resources.
No more limited to IITs and IIMs only for incubation.
Definitely take
that.
them as a core part of it, but we are open to other universities, and especially as you move to tier 2 and tier 3, you have to engage these resources that are available there. And ultimately, I think the hunger, the passion, the drive of an entrepreneur or a system is not driven by their logos, but driven by the people that are part of that system.
So identifying the people, identifying the right colleges and making your way through them is what?
Definitely. I think that's one of the approach we take, engaging the local ecosystem there. And then definitely we rely on taking all these investors and corporates that are connected to us at national level to do programs in smaller cities.
Having spent nearly 2 decades abroad, What was your takeaway and the transitional difference that you encountered? I don't know how the world there works really, in terms of they being an entrepreneur, their ecosystem, and vis-a-vis ours. How much of that difference do you find? Is it because of the diversity and population pressure that we have here, pressure or a benefit to say so? But what is the major difference that you have outlined and kind of seen on the both sides, benefit and a fallout for the country?
See, I think the two ecosystems are definitely very different, and it's a stage of maturity, one, and second is the localized needs of the ecosystem.
Okay.
When we look at the US startup and investment ecosystem, it started developing back in 70s when it really started heating up, 80s and onwards. And the ecosystem was driven around creative entrepreneurship, around vision.
And educational system in place. They have a very different educational.
Yeah, but the entrepreneur
paradigm.
profile was a little different than it was
Okay.
because the whole education system in US is the liberal arts format,
Yes.
right? It's a very less
Less
structured as
academic
Indian.
and less of.
So over there, the creative visionary entrepreneurship played the role, and that's why Mark Zuckerberg, Michael Dell, and all these Sergey Brin, all these people that started during college time. Very creative environment. Second part that you see is availability of capital. So people would do deep tech research and funding and investments. India doesn't have those.
Okay.
And the beauty of Indian development system is that we are very much outcome focused. We need the return on our investment quickly. So the
approach is very
first generation of startups that we did were the Olas and the Flipkarts, where you can build platform and through e-commerce and monetize it quickly.
Yes.
Not very deep tech domains, but quick monetization, low hanging fruit. Now, if you see with the impact in the startup ecosystem, some governance issues, some scalability issues, some valuation issues, the focus has changed. And now a lot of funding is available for early stage startups in deep tech domain,
Okay.
especially with the launch of the India AI mission last week, which the cabinet had
Yes.
approved. I think that's going to be a big momentum building initiative for the AI and generative AI ecosystem that we're looking to build.
This is very interesting. Just to elaborate a
Yeah.
little bit on this part, the initial stage of startup doers who had gone just focusing on the result and monetizing quickly, and now we're getting to deep tech route. Is this going to disrupt the startup ecosystem of the ones started earlier and the ones getting into the system now? Are they getting benefits of having the deep tech ecosystem vis-a-vis the startup doers who started earlier? Like you explained, how does this?
See, there's a lot of dynamics at interplay here because from the investor's side, when the cost of capital was cheap in US during a pandemic and post-pandemic when interest rates were low, then a lot of large funding could come to late-stage growth startups, pre-IPO startups in India. Now, and the return wasn't that high they were expecting because the cost of capital was low. But now the cost of capital has gone up. Resource allocation is a little bit challenging. So they're not looking to put in large amounts for late stage starters, but put more amount for deep tech startups, early stage, which can give them multiples and multiples of return in a few years, which justifies that investment. So one, that is at play. And second is, I think the government opening up space tech, government opening up ocean tech, government doing the hydrogen mission, the circular economy, all these deep tech domains that government has started promoting, and especially three sectors that we look at Meity. One is the quantum, second is semiconductor, and third is the AI.
Okay.
So a lot of government new initiatives are focused on that, and I think that just provides a validation to the entrepreneurs to work on that, knowing that government is backing them up.
Yes.
And then the investors get attracted given the serious engagement.
So getting the
government.
startup minds to work in the right sectors, grow them in
Absolutely.
a stable and a long-term growth platform stage
Absolutely.
later. Any three things you want to leave us with for the startup doers? These are the things you definitely should do and not do before you head on this journey and make your own businesses.
See, again, yesterday I was talking to this guy. He asked me a question in this session. He's like, I started with this great idea and I thought I was the only one doing it. Then I went to another event in some other city and someone is already doing it. I feel lost. And I was like, okay, so tell me, how old are you? He's like 22. I was like, you have a head start. With the average life expectancy of 70, you still have 48, 50 years to go. So what if one idea didn't work? What is it driving you to do it? Identify the passion that you have, because there will be a lot of obstacles on the way. Second, being persistent. That is critical during the down times and when you're slogging and not being able to succeed. And third is build partnerships. because it's a very lonely journey as an entrepreneur, and you'd rather have a community of people supporting you, either family, friends, investors, other startup founders who understand what journey you're on. So passion is needed, then your partnerships are needed, and then your perspective and focus that you are really building for, and persistence.
And the last one, for the investors, from the investors' point of view, what are the things that they should be cautious about while investing or encouraging founders on the journey?
See, I think a couple of things that we are looking at is, because parallelly we look to build the investor ecosystem in India, attract local capital. If it's foreign capital driven, then ultimately, if whoever writes a check writes a rule.
Okay.
So if you have a foreign investor, then for Indian startup, it's always not. You have to take the money where you get it. But if we can have local capital, one is it has to be patient. People need to understand it's not stock market.
Okay.
You can't just buy and sell just because
the moment
you have.
Feel it's not working,
Exactly. That you're sitting in front of the screen and you're bored and you say, okay, let's sell this. That doesn't work. So liquidity is not there. You have to be patient, and it's not a straight linear line for your portfolio growth. It's always a J curve. So whatever investment you do over time, it will look like as if it's in loss before it exponentially catches up. So understand the return profile that you're expecting. And third thing is diversify and never give up on a portfolio. Right? And support them, because putting money is one thing, but helping startups grow is equally important for them. And where the Indian startup ecosystem today is, where our GDP, which is $3.5 trillion, US is 22.
Yes.
So we have a long way to go. So growth will happen. Now we just have to make sure we participate in it and we can reap the benefits.
And hold on to the journey.
Hold on to the journey. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. It was a real pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you.